See that?
Oh, yeah, this meeting is being live streamed.
Okay, setting up your meeting for Facebook. So once it goes live, then we can go, okay, done. So we are live. So you could, if you go to my page, live music meeting, living music.
Are we live right now?
We're live.
Okay.
There's like a little bit of a delay. I'm gonna go into it. Hey, everybody. We are doing, okay, but let me make it, so it's, right now it's doing it, it's not doing a gallery view. Let me just change, if I change the view, and it should be a gallery view so we see everyone at the same time. And
Oh, I
people,
see us. Okay.
yeah, okay, you see, are we all on there now?
There we are.
Okay, good. It's working. It's working. Okay, I don't see an option to copy. Yeah, are we all on there now? Okay,
Yep, there we are.
okay,
And audio.
good. It's working. It's working. Okay, hold on. Let me
I don't see an
mute.
option to copy.
Yeah, are we all on there now? Okay.
Okay, there we are.
Okay,
We're in the loop.
I have to mute the. You have to mute the Facebook feed though. Otherwise, we're
Yeah,
gonna do that.
I don't have sound on here.
Okay, good, good. So let me just edit. I'm just gonna edit this and tag Rock Alarm, if I can. Let's see, settings. Yeah, don't see that here.
Technology.
Yep, I'm maybe a way. Actually, you know what? In the comments, I'm just gonna go into the comments and do that.
I can do it if you want to.
Okay. So okay,
Yeah.
so um, this is we get together weekly and talk. Megan, David, and I. We have meetings about the Living Music Rock Alarm Bob Moses film and um, what needs to be done. And it's pretty incredible because I've been a self-employed musician for 25, 30 years and, a one-man show. And so to have these friends who have amazing skills and can also do things that I can't do very well. They can do really well, and also even want to do those things is incredible. And also to believe in this project. And so I thought today we would just talk about the project and what it's been. So like it all started as an idea. This is originally I had this idea many years ago of just Rock Alarm would be so cool to like create a film about him because such an amazing person, such a just incredible person that people, a lot of people don't know about. And so, so I had the idea, but he lived in Quincy, Mass, just a suburb of Boston. And, I thought I had a friend who was a filmmaker, videographer, like, oh, maybe we could go up. But, what would we do? We go film for one, weekend or one week. And anyway, nothing ever happened. And then when Rock Alarm moved to Nashville, not Nashville, Memphis, and I'm in Nashville, he he was closer, so I would see him a lot more. But also, I told him that I was planning on going to New Orleans, and at some point he said, "Oh, maybe I'd like to go." And I was like, "Huh," because also I had hosted him over the pandemic for a few master classes, and Johnny Vidakovich joined in, and I hosted Johnny Vidakovich for a master class, and Rock Alarm joined in, and Johnny had expressed a ton of love and respect for Rock Alarm and how influential he was. For his music, for the music that he made. When he heard Rock Alarm as a kid, it was life changing for Johnny. So anyway, so this idea, so then I called Johnny and said, what do you think about, and I've probably said this before, but I'm just kind of, for people who are tuning in, just kind of giving the backstory. So I called Johnny and said, what do you think about doing some sort of collaboration with Rock Alarm? And Johnny Vidakovich said, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to. And so we were talking, but we weren't really able to get something scheduled. And then Megan and I made a trip to New Orleans and we were able to put a few things. We met with a guy who was able to get a master class scheduled for Rock Alarm at NOCA. It's a like art school for gifted kids in New Orleans. And then, oh, all right, Riley. Uh, and then from there, and Johnny said, "Oh, he can have my, I think, Thursday night gig at the Maple Leaf." Johnny's had a long-standing gig at the Maple Leaf, and so all of a sudden we had two gigs in the books, and then all of a sudden, Snug Harbor called about a gig, and we started looking at doing a fundraiser, and Megan was a huge help in that. Um, I was editing a video, and Megan helped a lot in launching that original fundraiser, because one of Megan's strong suits, which is not a skill of mine, is writing. Um, and so anyway, so then we started planning this New Orleans trip, and that launched this whole film. And then David, I don't, when did you first kind of become aware, and when did you think that were interested in being involved in some way?
Yeah. I mean, you'd been kind of talking about it for maybe the year previous. And then once New Orleans really started to come together, that's when um, things in my life seemed to allow uh, for the time. And then once I began to learn more about Rock Kalam and then connect with him first via Zoom and then meeting him and spending more time and learning more about the depth of who he is and what he has to offer, I felt more called to show up in whatever way I could. And so I think it was, in preparation for New Orleans that things really started to move forward with the three of us working together. And then uh, it was Richmond over the winter when I first connected in person. We all traveled together and filmed the recording session with Tasiji, and that was super special.
Yeah, that was a special trip. They've all been special, but that was really, having you be there too, David, and it was another road trip because we also picked up Rock Climb and drove to New Orleans, but then stopping in Asheville, picking you up, and then going to North Carolina and staying in my childhood home. While my mom and her boyfriend were not there, and then going on to Richmond and meeting to CG in person for the first time, who is, a very important person in Rock Alam's life. Um, yeah, that was huge. Megan,
How long had it been since you guys were on a road trip together?
oh, that's right. Our last road trip was in like 95,
30 years ago.
like almost 30 years ago, which
Yeah.
that photo
Is that the one from the photo?
that's from the road trip where David and I, around 30 years ago, because I think I was a sophomore or a freshman in college. Yeah. And David posted another picture of us in front of the mountains. That trip was amazing.
That's awesome.
David's parents let us take his van, their van, and just drive out west. And so yeah, so that was a road trip that we took. And
We went through New Orleans on that trip and we stayed with your brother.
oh, it was on that trip that we went? Are you sure about that? I don't
Uh-huh.
think so.
Think so.
Really? I know we went to
I think
Mardi Gras together, but I don't remember that.
I think we looped back through New Orleans on that trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always had a connection with New Orleans for just because my brother lived there, and I used to, when he was there, I used to go all the time, and I've always loved it. I still love it. Um, but yeah, so anyway, so that road trip was incredible. Um, and David, also you did a great job of getting the behind the scenes, getting a bunch of behind the scenes footage, and um, yeah, but to me the highlight of that for me was just the time all together. Like that morning at my mom's house, the grand piano, or Rock Alarm was showing me some concepts on the piano. It was really cool. We were all
Yeah,
in
that's
that
pretty special, an
room.
impromptu music lesson.
Yeah. And that's been a really cool thing during this, hanging out for this filming, is there's been a number of times where Rock Alam was like, remember I was talking about the Gil Evans voicings? Check this out. He did that on this when we were in New York as well. He at Joe Russo's studio, he was like, hey, come over here. And also at um, uh, Billy Martin's place. And yeah, so anyway, and Megan, what I know we've worked together a bunch, and I've involved you in a bunch of my projects, and you've been hugely helpful in so many different things. What was it that intrigued you about this before it
Uh,
was a reality?
well, I think just I don't know. I always like working on your projects, and I was like, Rock Climb is really important to you. And so that's why I wanted to meet him in the first place, was just because I knew he was super important in your life. And then, um, yeah, just, well, I wanted to go to New Orleans for fun, and then you turned it into a work trip. But it turned out good,
A lot of
meeting
fun too.
everybody. And
Yeah.
then that's the first time we met Bill Summers because you interviewed him for Cliff Chats, and just like kind of getting a feeling of, oh yeah, there's like a lot of cool stuff here. And then I feel like just since we were roommates for a while and like working at the kitchen table, and you'd be working on stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, what about this? What about this? And so it just felt pretty natural to get into it. But then I think, spending time with Rock Alam, he's just such a special dude, and in some ways reminds me a lot of my dad. And so it's been really nice to like just spend time with him. And also he's so creative, and the way that he just oozes music and creativity 24/7 after everybody's like, it's 2 a.m. I can't keep my head up, and he's just talking story and singing, and it was pretty amazing. So
How does he have more energy than all of us?
I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think his philosophy, and this is kind of just from what he said, is like he just is like full on, and then when he's home, it's like rest mode.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, I'm just checking this. I just want to make sure. I don't. I wish I could tag. If anyone knows how to tag. Okay, so Megan, did you tag in the comment? You did. Okay.
Comments. I tagged everybody. On the
Okay,
list.
awesome. So I don't know if that shows up on people's feed, and it looks like this. Did one of you share this? It looks like.
Let's see.
I think I
Yeah,
did try
Yeah.
to.
Like, so Megan, if you can share this to your timeline as
let's
well.
see. Where do I?
And if you're tuning in right now, we're just having a conversation about, kind of behind the scenes of our whole process. We end up talking about lots of different things when we're having these meetings, but it all centers around the film that we're making about Rockalam Bob Moses, and so anyway, we're just having a conversation about that now. Um, and so, David, would you? So you got involved in New Orleans. We were going to New Orleans, and you started getting involved with this project, and you were super helpful in kind of running the behind the scenes operation when we were in New Orleans, because we were just, I mean, it was crazy busy, run and gun, just like, I mean, and also we were just learning how to use the cameras and the lavs, everything. It was all brand new. But would you talk a little bit about what you were up to behind the scenes and what you've been up to?
Sure. Yeah. And I guess maybe the main role that I've played has been project management. And through some of the other projects, mostly like design work that I've been doing, I've been using the platform Notion, both internally, just for my own organization. Notion's great because if you don't know, it's a platform that functions kind of like a spreadsheet meets a Word doc. So it can handle text really well. It can handle numbers and tables really well. It can also handle images and visual elements really well. So I've been, I guess, over the last year, learning how to use Notion and incorporate it into my own workflows. And this seemed like a perfect application. And so with Cliff and Megan, like running and gunning down in New Orleans, and needing to both manage what was happening there in terms of the schedule, the budget, the communication, the coordination with all of the other moving parts and players, scheduling the recording sessions, the performances, the master classes. There's just a lot happening. And then also trying to operate the cameras, and as Cliff said, brand new cameras at that, and kind of dial their workflows. I can only imagine what that was like. Having to manage SD cards and um, hard drives and multiple computers. And so I was just trying to show up in whatever way I could to make their jobs as easy as possible. So a lot of that was like the social media, learning the behind the scenes on that, how to use later to broadcast across multiple social media outlets, including the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, the LinkedIn, simultaneously, how to schedule those posts in advance, how to include the right hashtags and mentions. So that was a bit of a steep learning curve for me, along with all of these other learning curves that I'm involved in with um, taking DaVinci Resolve classes with Cliff. We were kind of getting into that at that time too. And then wanting to learn the camera, wanting to learn kind of the technical stuff. But yeah, just trying to keep things moving forward. And then also were we running the Indiegogo, the first campaign at that time? I think we were. So
Yeah.
stepping into that world too,
Mhm.
of updates, making sure that we were connecting and integrating across the socials so that we were extending our reach as far as possible. And um, a lot of new learning at that time, but again, feeling really inspired by uh, just the vision of the project. And Cliff is the one that really spearheaded that. So Cliff, thanks to you for having the vision to see how this could manifest. And then
How to include the
being
right
able to move
hashtag.
forward with the necessary action
So
steps, right?
that
Because
was
a lot of people
a bit of a
have the
steep
vision,
learning
but they
curve
can't make
for
it
me,
happen.
along with
And then a
all
lot
of
of people
the
can
learning curves that I'm
do
involved
the
in.
work, but they don't have the bigger picture. And you have the full stack of all of that.
Oh,
Um,
well,
yeah,
sorry
so
about
that's
that sound there.
a long way around to answer your question, but that's what was going on at the time and how it seemed like my skill set aligned with the needs of the project, and the timing of it all.
And it's just been fun. Also, I think it's been we've it's been a way we've been able to reconnect more, having this project as well. Um,
Totally.
yeah,
Can we do a commercial break real quick?
yeah, of course.
Are you gonna
So
plug?
we're wrapping up our second Indiegogo campaign. We're trying to raise a princely sum of money, but anything we can raise is going to be helpful. A lot of this has been done out of pocket, out of Clifford's pocket for the most part. And we're just trying to make the best film we can. So any contributions are great. If you go to bobmosesdrummerfilm.com, there's a support the film button right there after the teaser. Nice.
Oh
You can
yeah, scan it
watch the
from
teaser
David's phone.
and then
High
um,
tech, low tech.
yeah, you can check out the teaser. We've got Pat Metheny on there, Gary Burton, Steve Swallow. They've all given us great interviews, as have Peter
My,
Erskine, Jack DeJohnette, a whole bunch of other
Mike
great
Calabrese, Lake
people.
Street Dive,
Yep.
Billy Martin, John Medeski, Tasiji Munoz.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been an incredible. I mean, journey just seems like the most fitting word for me. It's been an incredible year. I can't believe it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also people who tune in, feel free if you're tuned in while it's live, feel free to ask questions.
Hey, Cliff, I
And
have a question. Something we
okay,
were talking about before we got on the live stream was the kind of the thread that connects um, Rock Lam's mentors. We're talking about Max Roach and Elvin Jones, the folks that he was like not only like living with, like playing music with, but living with in the case of Max Roach, like in the same building. Um, and then the folks that he was contemporaries with and still is to this day, Pat Metheny, Steve Swallow, Steve Coriel, Gary Burton, and now kind of the next guard, his students, folks you mentioned, Meg, um, like Billy Martin, John Medeski, Chris Wood, Joe Russo, Mike Calabrese, and then a lot of folks that those are high profile folks that are featured in the film. But he's touched the lives of so many other students, and it's just cool to see how that thread connects all of those generations. Cliff, can you kind of speak to that and maybe what you think about that and how that narrative comes across in the film?
yeah, I like how you put it. So the way that I see Rock Alam in many different ways, and sometimes I don't connect Rock Alam the musician with Rock Alam the person, even though he lives music. Like all the things he's done, it's like that's someone else in some ways for me. Um, but for one thing, is I feel like he has a connection to these heavyweights of music, part of music history, in a way that there aren't many, if any, people left that have that sort of connection. I mean, there's probably some people alive still that have played with Charles Mingus, maybe, there probably are some, no, I'm sure there are some people who did, but he, when he was 13, he was jamming with them and he was learning from people like Max Roach. Like he talked about going to MoMA to hear Max Roach's group and then going back to Max's apartment to, for the after party and hearing how the musicians were talking about the music. Um, so he grew up in it, and we explored this when we were in New York and we went to MoMA with Rock Alarm. Um, I think he's a part of a lineage and connected in a way that can be hard to find. And he has happily passed that on. He's very, very giving, and has is happily shares what he's experienced, what he's learned, his insights, and also stories. I mean, I might we were talking yesterday, and I might say something, and all of a sudden, like that triggers a story. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard that story. Oh, why am I not recording right now? Because I want to record everything. And so when we get together with Rock Alarm, we throw the. I'm like, Megan's in charge of the lavs. I'm like, Megan, please put the lavalier mic on Rock Alarm. And Rock Alarm, especially early on, was like, oh, we don't need this. And we're like, what? We never know. You never know what gold will come.
And yet
Um,
we do know because there's so much gold. It's like
yeah,
you
I
don't have
mean,
the
but you
mic
never
on.
know when something new will come out, a news story, because we've heard some of the stories before, but there's always more, and that's the thing about Rock Alam is, and part of what I want to share in this film is, to me it's been like a voyage of discovery, in that he when I took that first lesson with him 17 or so years ago, I didn't know anything about him, and I'd learned a little bit more and more, but I didn't know anything. It just becomes more and more depth, and I guess partly why I have a hard time, it's almost like he's two different people. Like I don't always recognize that as the same person, all the things that he's done, is because he's just a real person, who's just he's lived it, and to him those are just, it was just his life, um and so anyway, so it's been, yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but as far as the film, I think showing people the connections and all, but also his living his truth, which I think is something he learned early on from all these great people, that it wasn't about imitation, that it was about um, innovation. It was about what do you have inside of you, going deeper, and what can you bring to it. And I think that's been his lifelong search. Um, and so, yeah, thanks for asking that.
Yeah, and it seems like that's maybe of the greatest value as far as what he's passing on to the next generation. It's not just how to hit the drums, how to play the music. It's the underlying philosophy that informs the playing, and then the living of the music, right? The living music. Um, and I think that that's why this story is important for folks beyond, the jazz heads, but beyond just the drummers. Like it resonates with all people because it's a universal story about connecting with authentic self and expressing that in the world through creativity primarily, but just through being, Um, yeah, I think that that's why this story is important. One of the reasons.
Thanks. And that's one thing. That's another thing about these meetings that's been really cool, is just to get a different perspective from you and Megan, and also to bounce ideas off of each other. And like when I was making the teaser, like Megan was hugely helpful, and you were as well, with just like, hey, have you thought about trying? Maybe I was feeling stuck or something. Have you thought about
That's
moving
a
this
really
over?
nice way to say it, and not backseat driving.
No, no. I mean, good. They were good ideas. So anyway, so it's been really cool having a team, and also, like I said in a post recently, just that you all have, gotten to know Rock Alam, and I think love him like I do. And So that's just really, it's just a very meaningful project for I think all of us. Um, and so now, now the really hard work begins of, you know, cataloging, organizing, and editing,
Making
and
a film of this thing,
what's that?
making a film of this thing.
Making a film. And so then, when the fundraiser's over, we're still working on, getting funding. Um, and, David, you've brought a few people into the project as far as, having meetings with them that have been really helpful. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do feel sure that we can do it even if we don't get more funding. But anybody that has funding and can contribute and sees something in this, definitely we can use the help. It'd be nice not to do the color. Up, we have a visitor coming. Say hi.
Hi. Can we please one more?
One more.
Hi.
Um,
Bob Moses drummerfilm.com is where
yeah,
you check out the teaser, support the film,
yeah.
Spread the
contribute.
word, share with
Yep.
folks you know.
Yeah, and so in these meetings, like, well, we'll have an agenda of certain things that seem like priorities, and then we bounce ideas and that sort of thing. And so, like, one thought that I have, this is kind of as an example of these meetings, is and this thing we've talked about is how much we don't want to give too much away as far as the film. We don't, you don't want to spoil the film, but also want to give people something so they feel involved and also interested. And so kind of like the teaser that we made, I'm wondering how much maybe we keep putting out certain other teasers even throughout as we're kind of promoting, as we're making steps. Maybe one teaser is more about the making of the film, or one teaser is more about New York or more about New Orleans. But I think, how do you all think that's a good idea or not? And if so, how do we do that without giving away key moments that are important for the film? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, you're asking us or the
I'm asking you all, yes.
Well, I think we have so much footage that like in the I mean, we have probably what, at least a couple hundred hours of footage.
Yeah, I think more than that. We now have, 4, 8, okay, we now have over 14 terabytes of footage,
Hmm,
maybe 15.
yeah. So we've got a lot of stuff that, it might not make the final cut into the film because we just can't put it all, but we have a lot of stuff I think we can share, you know.
We do.
I agree. I think there are a few benefits of that. One, we're providing value before we request value, right? So we're just extending value to others because it is going to be valuable to share, especially kind of the more intimate moments, and video, especially with really good audio that captured, just carries much more story than text or even an image would. Plus, Cliff, it gives you a good opportunity to practice your editing skills and your curation skills. That's a lot of footage for you primarily, but for us to go through, to filter down, to condense into the key moments, the key um, clips that are going to be used in the film. And so, I mean, that's going to be a long process. And so it'll help with that. And um, I think it's really cool to like give a preview,
Yeah.
and that it can be different each time. It's not just one trailer. So I think for those reasons, it's a good idea.
I like what you said about providing value because I've been thinking about like just spending time with all these people, like these amazing musicians, and hearing their stories and hearing them play, whether doing a live gig or a session or something like that, and watching how they work and how they interact and hearing them talk. And it's like, I think once in a while with Rock Alarm, there's really basic, like try playing harmonically instead of playing one drum at a time. And it's like, oh, simple thing. I can go practice it on the kid. But I feel like a lot of stuff is taking more time to percolate. But I'm just realizing over time that like music of all kinds is sounding completely different to me now in ways that I wasn't expecting. And so I think that that's like a lot of the value that we can offer here is sharing that with other people, that the things that they're telling us or the way that we're seeing them interact, we have so much of that documented now that we get to share that with other people. And obviously, I think the film will have a lot of that. It's not just a biography, it's like inspiration. It's about a really special person, and it's got incredible ties to music history, but it's just got like, I don't want to say mind expanding because it sounds cheesy, but creatively, I think there's just so much there that people can draw from and get inspiration from, and just sort of, you know, meditate, or just like let these things seep in as musicians or creatives or people doing things in life. And so I do think that when you said value, I was like, yeah, this, to me, there's a ton of value in that, of like, oh, things are changing in my sort of artistic perspective, and I don't even know it's happening just from being around them. So I think as we're releasing footage and things, I think that, can happen for other people too.
Yeah, and I think also that's, I mean, I definitely agree, and I think that's part of my goal with the film is to hopefully have people experience that, and hopefully that affects some people. Um, but also, it was, when you were saying that about all the musicians we've been around, another thing that's really struck me is it's just their generosity,
Yeah.
just how giving. I remember, being early in my music playing development, and just like not understanding that at all. Like, just like what can, what is it that for me, but like the more I've gotten into this project, the more I've learned and observed these, great people, these masters. I realized that they're not they're it doesn't seem that they're thinking about what's in it for me at all. It's like something, an offering. And so anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about that. Like how can I give more? I mean, I've been thinking about that for a long time, and this in some ways feels like an opportunity to do that, um, because it's sharing this special person. It's uh, and also, I mean, his story, Rocklam's story, is so, and to say his story just almost feels like it minimizes it in some way, but he's lived such a rich life to capture it in some way. I mean, there's no way to really share his story. I mean, his story is all but to at least give a glimpse, and also hopefully give some of those insights in it, which, I've told you all about before, but there's so many ways that Rock Alarm has helped me, and it's been years later, things that just kind of seeped in, where I'm like, how did he help me? If I know he did, he's helped me, and this is kind of, the cheesy sort of thing, but he's helped me kind of find more of my inner voice, and more of my, uh, yeah, just being okay, being authentically myself, and not feeling like I need to be somebody else, or which is a huge thing, because you know people can spend their lives chasing somebody, and as I'm paraphrasing, as people I've heard, from various masters, that you can never be a better version of that person than them. You can only be the
Hmm.
best version of yourself. But so anyway, so those things have been, yeah, but just to see that lived, and to document that being lived, I feel like that, that's a big part of the story. That's why, Rock Alam, his philosophy, living music, is like, the film has to be called that, because he's embodying that. Um, and so, yeah, anyway, it's that's been an incredible, it's been incredible to experience and be a part of, and then, the people we've met and interviewed and filmed, and to be trusted to, like, do this and be learning on the job, has been all an amazing experience. Are there any, were you gonna say something, Megan?
Well, I was just thinking, when you're talking about everybody's generosity and I think kindness and stuff, and I was thinking that when we started filming and because you put me in charge of the audio and putting the lav mic on Rock Alarm, and I'm always monitoring in my in-ears. So I hear stuff that nobody else hears because it's just coming straight from his mouth to my ear. And I was a little bit nervous at first when we started, like, what's it really going to be like? If he walks away, is he going to be muttering under his breath, like, oh, these people, just leave me alone or whatever, And I was a little bit like, when you meet heroes, like, you never know. And I've never heard anything like that. And he just seems like so true all the time. Like, whether, and then we've had that mic on him for like entire days. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a really, really nice thing to think, okay, we're getting the real person, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, he's such an honest person. Well, a few things. One is he'll tell me stories and, I'll remember these stories and but sometimes they're like, really, that's amazing that happened, like almost unbelievable. But then when I've interviewed people, they've always corroborated the exact same story. That's the right word.
Yep.
Um, uh, I mean, every time, every story, and there
Yep.
might be a little bit different perspective, but it's the same exact same story. And so that just gives me even more trust, that I know if he says something, it's he experienced it.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing to experience as well. Um, yeah, has there been any certain highlights for you all as far as the process up to this point? I know you, David, you kind of mentioned, I mean, that trip to Richmond, I'm sure. Um, any other things?
Just the learning. I mean, you've mentioned this a few different times, like um, all that's been involved from just the purely technical learning, the cameras, learning the gear before you select it, going through the process of selecting it, pairing it to the lenses, the batteries, the hot swap features, to the software, the deep dive that we, did into DaVinci with all of those courses, learning everything from the editing to the coloring to the sound, and then the social media, and then Megan, everything that you bring from the writing and then just the precision drilling down into the fine tuning of the craft of language, um, and then to understanding all the different platforms, to then all the soft skills of just connecting with everybody and managing the relationships. I don't know, there's just been a lot of learning. So that's been a highlight for me, is the opportunity that, all of the opportunities that have come with leaning into this project.
Nice. Yeah. For me, it's just getting to spend time with all the people because they've all been just really wonderful, to us and accommodating. And I mean, from Pat's interview, Pat Metheny's interview, like he just gave us such a beautiful interview and spent way more time than they said he was going to have with us, and then reconnecting with Rock Kalam and even being at Billy Martin's a couple weeks ago, and like, you know, he got us lunch and it was just like just spending all day. And I think just the human connections are so nice because as much as I think it's tempting to be like, well, there's people at this level and this level and that level and blah blah blah. It's all like the tribe. And so I think that community aspect is super nice. But
Yeah, the human connection. That's been one of the really special things about this is some people that I put on this pedestal to meet them, and I've not had the experience of meeting heroes that were not nice. Luckily, they've been exceeded any hopes of how nice they would be. Um, like when I first met Pat Metheny, I was super nervous. I mean, that was a really big deal for us because he's Pat Metheny. He's a world famous musician. Um, I was really nervous, and we were setting up, and I heard some voices. We were behind getting the backdrop ready, and I heard some voices, and I come out, and it's his manager and Pat Metheny. And as soon as I met him, I felt at ease because, well, for one, he made me feel that way, but also he reminded me of my uncle, like kind of like you said, how Rakalam reminds you of your dad. Like it was just like, oh, he's like an uncle, So, yeah. Anyway, that was really cool. And then I mean, like Mike Calabrese, we traveled to Knoxville to interview Mike Calabrese. Mike Calabrese plays with a band called Lake Street Dive. If you're not familiar, they're an amazing band. Just his hospitality of let's have lunch, let's hang. We come to the concert. We interviewed him, went to the concert, then we hung out afterwards. Had a beer together. I mean, stuff like that. And then when we were in New York, Joe Russo and Billy Martin, their hospitality and just everyone's givingness. I mean, John Medeski drove 2 or 3 hours to Brooklyn to do the interview, to do the gig with Rock Alam and Tasiji, and then he drove back that night. So he drove like around 6 hours just to do that. I mean, that's love. Oh, and then when it came to paying him, he said just put that towards the film. And so that's love. And so that's the thing that I want to keep present, the most present in mind, even when it's really hard work putting it together, is that because we've had all these experiences that were really amazing and fun and hard work, but that really want the love to show. I think that's a huge message of this film
Yeah.
is that when Rakalam finishes a conversation, he says, "Love always, Hugh." And ever since I've known him, he said that, and he says that in email. And at first, I kind of thought like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, what's that all about?" But now I know that he's living that's and he also talks about this turning point in his life when he started to sit with Tasiji and his spiritual teacher. And it's so anyway, that's something that I'm wanting to keep in mind for this as well.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, on that, I was thinking about how I think in some ways you could view Rock Kalam as having fallen through the cracks as far as he doesn't have maybe the notoriety that a lot of his peers have, even though he's been so prolific in putting out music left and right. Um, but I think it's been really nice seeing, like when you're talking about the love, that everyone we talk to is just, so many people are like, thank you for making this film. He really deserves this. Everybody loves him. And it's, in their minds, he hasn't fallen through the cracks at all. He's, super important. And so I feel like that's been nice getting into this project and seeing, yeah, this is somebody important. Why aren't more people talking about him? And then realizing all these people are still talking about him and he's still a part of their daily lives and creativity. And he's such a big part of all their stories. And so I think that's been great to see. Gary Burton, which we didn't even know if we would get an interview with him because I think kind of all we knew was like Rock Kalam said he had been fired from his band a few times. And it's like, I don't know, maybe he's not going to want to talk to us. And he was so sweet and just gave us this beautiful interview. And yeah, so I think it's been great to see all the connections that other people have maintained to him, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I keep hearing from people in person and messages that of the impact that Rock Kalam has had, either a lesson they had with him or hearing him play or time that he always how generous he was with his time, how he really spent time with that person. I think Rock Kalam, when he senses that somebody is genuinely interested, he will give endlessly.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I've seen that over and over again. And so I think that's kind of another message that I hope will come out in the film is that that giving is a gift, but I mean, but I think it's a reciprocal thing that people are giving back to him now. And he says he's feeling so much love. He's given so much. And it's interesting because he talks about different Rockalan, or different Bob Moses's, different, and how he wasn't always so nice and all that. And I'm sure there's people out there who've had experiences with him that maybe were not always pleasant because maybe he spoke a truth that was hard or that sort of thing. But yeah, I think the honesty maybe was a challenge for some people. But anyway, but that's never been what I've experienced. And though he has been very honest with me, and there's been times where I've had to kind of take it and not let my ego, get too bruised or whatever, Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
So let's talk about the campaign one more time, since we only have 2 days
There's a
left.
campaign?
Yep. There's an
Really? What's
Indiegogo
that?
campaign.
What?
It's ending tomorrow night, late tomorrow
Really?
night.
What?
And our goal is, we already had a Indiegogo campaign. Yes.
Where we have the
That's
light show for
awesome.
the.
Yeah. So our first campaign was really good. Our goal in this one is not to grab people by the ankles and shake all the coins out of their pockets, or, we're really grateful for all the people who have given to either campaign. We're not asking people to give more, but we do believe that there are a lot of people out there who love Rock Kalam and want to see this film made. So the idea is to get the word out to those people, not to say, you know, can you give more? Can you give more? But to say, hey, there's a lot of other people that want to be a part of this too. So we just need help spreading the word.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So if you would, this has become we were if you're just tuning in, we were talking about our experience with the Rock Alarm and the make what we've been experiencing making a film, what our meetings are like, the kind of things we do. But then we're also every now and then Megan's been really good about reminding us that we're still raising money. So sharing, commenting, liking is all really helpful. We, but if you are just tuning in, or you're tuning in for part, if you want to hear more about this whole process and how this started and how we're all involved with it, this will be up and you can watch the whole thing. And definitely, if you share it, it's helpful. Also, for people who haven't yet been to the Indiegogo page, there's a link in the comments down there. Uh, there's a lot of information there about like what we're wanting, like why we're wanting the amount of money. Really, we want to be able to hire very professional colorists and sound editor, video editor, to help finish the film and make it. One really hard decision early on was the camera, was to invest in the camera. Hey Cedar, um, I really, I decided to invest in this camera, even though it was really scary, because to pay that much for a camera just seemed like too much. And, I had to go into my savings but I'm really glad that I did, because we have footage that's of this quality that I feel like, with being able to edit it and have some help finishing it with the color and the sound and the finishing editing, I think besides obviously the story is most important. I always look at it like, rather have a great performance from a great band in a okay studio than a mediocre performance in an amazing studio. That it's more about the content, and that's what we'll do regardless. But if we can get help with color, audio, finishing, editing, that'd be amazing.
and these cameras too, you pick because they're Netflix approved. So we
Yeah,
be able to distribute this anywhere once it's done. We're not
yeah,
going to
and
be
it's possible
limited.
we might have a meeting with Netflix, so that's pretty incredible. Um, so yeah, anyway, so now that definitely we're in post production, but with post production, things will come up as far as like, oh, it'd be really good to get this. So it doesn't mean we're not filming anymore, but now we're working on the next part of this film, which is going to be where we'll have to figure out a process for going through the footage, but definitely transcribing all of the all of
Mhm.
the videos is a big part of it. So we have it all written. And another thing, I'm curious if people would be interested. I feel like some transcripts of some of the interviews would be cool to release, just a written transcript, because I think they're just interesting. I mean, these interviews with these masters, Pat Metheny, Gary Burton, so many, Billy Martin, all of these amazing people that we've interviewed. So anyway, so I'm just curious, yeah, as we release different content, because we want to keep people, we want to keep everyone interested and engaged. We don't want to just disappear, which is kind of going to be easy to do in the, in the editing den or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so please let us know if there's something you'd like to see. Anything else you all want to add? No?
Hmm. I was
Bob
just
Moses,
thinking,
go ahead.
do it one more, say it one more time.
BobMosesDrummerFilm.com. That'll
Yeah.
be in the
I was
comments
just
too.
thinking about the importance of this project. And Cliff, I know you have participated in some of the online master classes. And I was learning a while back about how that got started. I don't know the guy's name, but he was like, there are people who aren't going to be around forever. And it's important that we capture their wisdom, their knowledge, their information, their passion, and their perspective so that we can preserve that. And in that way, this is functioning very much as a legacy project, right? You're preserving, archiving some highly valuable footage
Mhm.
that's not just, about Bob Moses Raklam, his life. It extends far beyond that into many other areas of life. And so, just to consider why folks might want to support this project is it's because it has that much value. It's really like a time capsule that is aggregating tons of highly valuable musical wisdom, but life wisdom. And as Cliff mentioned, it's being done at a high production value level, right? Starting with the cameras, and then hopefully all the way through post production, your editing and color and sound, and then even distribution, right? I think that, as Cliff said, the content um, um, is of such a level that it really deserves to be elevated through all of the different phases of the process. So that's what we're hoping for with all of this.
David, I think maybe you could be one of another roles. You can play a spokesperson.
Right? That was great.
We have found our spokesperson.
I just passed that on to Megan and let her recraft it and then
Oh my
redistribute
gosh.
it.
No, it's
Yeah,
perfect the
that
way
was
you said it.
beautiful.
That was great.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really good. Well, thank you, and thank you for whoever tuned in and people tune in after the fact too. So I'm going to go to the stream and end it. So say bye at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But you all stay on.